What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Aftersound here, bringing you Splinterlands content every single day. We also stream right here on this channel as well as on Twitch, so make sure you come by and say hello. This video is also brought to you by my music, which is available anywhere you stream music under the name Aftersound, and I do have a new song out recently called Summer Gravity, so check it out. Let me know what you think, and I appreciate the support. All right, guys, I want to talk about alt season and why I personally am preparing for no alt season at all over the next whatever time frame you're looking at, right? 3-6 months, the next year. Now, I know people are going to look at this and be like, oh, this is like a super bearish video, and you're like not thinking clearly and not thinking straight about things. And my thought process is this: I would rather record this video and be 100% wrong than not record it and be surprised. So I'm just sharing my perspective with you guys here as somebody who follows kind of broader markets, so macro as well as Bitcoin specifically, and then obviously how that all filters down into the altcoin market and alt season. So when it comes down to it, and I look at how the cycle has played out so far, right? And we're like 18 months into the cycle, because April of last year was when the halving happened for Bitcoin. And Bitcoin has gone on a tear, right? We actually crossed the all-time high last year, made it to like 70K. We're up more than 50% from that. We're up like 6x from the lows of the previous cycle, right? So Bitcoin has been doing well. And the one thing that I don't think gets talked about enough, at least not here on this channel, right? And again, this is a gaming channel, so keep in mind, none of this is financial advice. I'm not telling you what to do or buy or invest in. I'm simply saying that the way that I'm viewing things, I'm trying to be as conservative as I can be and prepare for the worst case scenario, knowing that if it's not the worst case scenario, I'll be happy anyway, right? But getting back to my point here, one of the things I don't think gets talked about enough is the impact that a lot of the financialization of Bitcoin has done, and therefore kind of like leading into that, or stemming from that, I should say the trad financialization of Bitcoin, but stemming from that is all of the Bitcoin treasury companies. Now, there was a massive amount of hype and excitement for all these different, Bitcoin treasury companies that were popping up, especially over this past year. Once the election happened and Bitcoin became, much more friendly, people were jumping in and getting crazy and, buying all types of these treasury companies, a lot of which are down significantly now from their highs, right? So I look at that and I think to myself, all the money that would have potentially gone into alt season, I think, was spent chasing Bitcoin treasury companies. Why? Well, okay, think about it this way. You know what these companies are involved in. They're rotating around, or I should say they're orbiting around Bitcoin, right? And people are able to do this in a regulated financial system, right? TradFi. So instead of going and playing in, a bunch of like altcoins where, yeah, all you have is like the founder's words. There's no regulation. There's no rules. There's no whatever. And especially because people got burned a lot with meme coins and all this other stuff. I do think a lot of retail capital went into a lot of these treasury companies. Now, was it a lot? Was it all? No, obviously not, right? But I think a decent amount did. And for the retail money that didn't go in, I think it's because retail is broke, right? Inflation's crazy. People don't have the money that they had to spend previously. Like, interest rates are high, so liquidity is just not flowing the way that it was. And so when I think about how this cycle might have potentially played out if we end up looking back on it in 2, 3, 4 years, my guess, right, and again, this is my conservative guess, is that we're going to look at this and say, yeah, okay, Bitcoin essentially did like a 6x or whatever from the low, right? And again, I'm not saying that the bull run is like done yet. I think Bitcoin can still run, and we'll see how the rest of this market, or the rest of this quarter, goes. But people will look at this and say, all right, Bitcoin pumped, and then after it pumped, all of the treasury companies followed, and therefore the treasury companies essentially acted like alt season, right? They soaked up all the liquidity that would have gone into altcoins, all of these unproven, untested games with all of these teams that have like no background or are anonymous, right? People learned from the past, and so I think about this from my perspective. For example, I did not go heavy into any alts, and part of that is because especially after the last bull run, I really settled into my Bitcoin maxiness, right? But On top of that, I started playing the Bitcoin Treasury game. Now, I didn't, I didn't go heavy into any of the other companies. I've just been doing MicroStrategy, and like I was talking about earlier, like the financialization. It's been fun, playing like options with MicroStrategy and IBIT. And for me, that's way more fun and entertaining. And the word I want to use is safe, but I don't even know if that's right. But it's like, instead of me just playing the casino with a bunch of altcoins, with teams that are making promises that I've seen broken all the time, right? From all these different games that promise and hype and whatever, I decided to go and play in the Bitcoin's, derivatives, or I don't know if that's what it's called, but like the Bitcoin options market and Bitcoin related options markets, like MicroStrategy. So I can imagine many others probably did the same or are still doing the same. And therefore, like, capital just wasn't flowing into altcoins the way that it was. So what does this mean moving forward? Okay. Again, I'm not trying to be bearish here in the sense that, like, oh, it's all over for Splinterlands, right? Because again, this is all about Splinterlands and not about like the market as a whole. I'm just providing the market as a whole as a little bit of a backdrop for this. So all that being said, how does this impact Splinterlands moving forward? And I've talked about this, and this was even in my 3 biggest questions going into the September town hall. But if we do not get alt season, what do things look like here in Splinterlands? How do we navigate over the next 6 months, over the next 4 years, right? Until the next wave or cycle comes in, and maybe there's a little bit more liquidity. Maybe people have a little bit more confidence in gaming, or maybe the gaming run happens at some point over the bear market, right? Again, I don't know. That being said, as we move forward, my expectation and kind of like what I'm preparing for is that, sure, Bitcoin might still run. We have 2.5 months left before the end of the quarter, and Q4 is generally a good time for Bitcoin. Again, I could be wrong, and maybe this is the year that things are different, but my expectation is that we're probably not going to see a massive capital rotation into alts unless Bitcoin does like some stupid numbers, like it hits like 500,000 or 400,000 or something like that, and then all of a sudden everybody's flush with cash from their Bitcoin gains or their MicroStrategy gains or whatever, and they want to rotate that in because ETH, BNB, all this other stuff is following, and we follow the same kind of cascading waterfall where it's just like Bitcoin into L1s, into mid caps, and then low caps, and gaming and all that. But I don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening because when Bitcoin starts to run, I think a lot of these treasury companies will start to soak up that liquidity. Yes, there might be people that come into altcoins, and that filters down into Splinterlands somewhere, especially for players that are already here. But I think that this game is going to need to stand on its own. And to that point, I want to be very clear that I do believe Splinterlands is actually primed to do that very well. The stuff that the team has been working on to make this just a phenomenal experience as a game has been great. And if they're doing well, financially and runway wise, and it seems like they are, at least so far, especially if they're holding a lot of Bitcoin and crypto assets, that will be good for them in the long run to survive any kind of extended, prolonged bear market in the altcoin space, right? And so the focus here for them is on building a top tier experience in crypto that allows people not to get rich, but just come in, play the game at a casual level, at a high level, at whatever experience people want, whatever kind of interaction they want with it, right? Or just play land, or just do conflicts, or just do tournaments, or just do brawls, or whatever the case is. My point is this: is that I do believe that Splinterlands is creating a diverse and well-rounded experience for people that want to come in and check out the game. And as long as they continue to do that and have the capital to continue to run with that, we will burn more DEC. We will burn more SPS. We still need to solve that flywheel issue, which I'll get into in another video. But, that will become more and more scarce over time. Right now, there's just a ton of SPS out there, and hopefully we lock up a good amount for the mini set. But I keep digressing. My point is that as long as we continue forward, as long as we continue pushing forward, and the DAO and the team are able to have a symbiotic relationship where we are burning tokens that we can't go back from, right? So we're burning more SPS, we're burning more DEC. That, to me, is a good sign for the future. So that's where I stand with this stuff. Again, I'm being very conservative in my approach, not expecting an alt season. Again, if 10,000, 20, 30,000 new players come into the game and they all want to grab a ton of SPS and that pushes SPS to the moon, I'm cool with that. I am cool with coming back to this video and being like, I was dead wrong. but that's not what I'm preparing for. And I just want to share that perspective with you. Whether I'm right or wrong, I have no idea. And I'm not telling you what to do. All I'm saying is that this is how I am planning for the next kind of 3 to 6 months in terms of like where Bitcoin might go, and how that will filter down into the rest of the crypto markets, including and specifically for Splinterlands. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That is all I have for you guys in this video. I'll catch you all in the next one and see you around the game. Take care.